True Story is an engaging but predictable thriller with well-orchestrated twists. An inspired Wesley Snipes and Kevin Hart partnership is enough to drive this 7-episode series forward, but it's certainly not without its flaws. The story itself opens with a monologue that actually sounds like Kevin Hart is talking about his life. He's not, thank goodness, as we were instead whisked across to the high-flying life of fictional celebrity Kid. He's been doing comedy gigs, big-budget superhero movies, and is on top of the world. When Kid arrives in Philly for the next stop on his tour, his world is turned upside down when his brother Carlton shows up. After a drunken night downtown, Kid wakes up next to a young woman who's lying face down on the bed. Presumably dead after an overdose, Carlton and Kid work together to try and hide the evidence before they're caught out. After enlisting the help of Greek gangsters, Kid finds his entire world spiraling out of control. Will he be able to make it out of this unscathed? The performances from Hart and Snipes are actually pretty good, and certainly enough to keep you watching until the end. The trouble is, the story has one too many contrived bouts of drama in it, and you'll see the big twist coming a mile off. The other problem here comes from the celebrity culture and constant references to the high life. From live stream videos blowing up with thousands of watchers in a flash, to the inclusion of a deliberate bit of dialogue to tell us a hotel costs $5,000 a night, this show is real endless for pushing the high life. Oh, Kid's been invited to Beyonce and Jay-Z's party? That's cool. What's this? Kid is doing a superhero movie with Chris Hemsworth? Great. Kid gets VIP access to the Sixers game, complete with a backstage pass and a swanky VIP box high above everyone. Yeah, we get it. This may sound like I'm being sour, but honestly, this show is so over the top and in your face with its wealthy lifestyle that it forgets to tell an engaging thriller. There's a constant push-pull between Kid's everyday life and the dark thriller aspects. Unfortunately, this also sours the experience of watching the thriller unfold. True Story isn't going to be a show to take the world by storm. Fans of Kevin Hart and Wesley Snipes will eat this up though, while those after a simple but enjoyable thriller will find enough to keep them satisfied over a few nights. Does this compete with the best of the genre though? In the words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, no chance. The king of comedy, Mike Tyson once said, "Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth." That quote is unbelievably true in life, and it forms the crux of Netflix's latest drama-comedy mashup. As we cut across to Kevin Hart, episode 1 of True Story begins with this wildly popular comedian speaking somberly about what he's done to make it to the top. Only, in this story, Hart is playing a guy called Kid, who finishes an appearance on The Ellen Show and heads back on a flight. Unfortunately, he's stuck with a pretty obnoxious fan who continues to probe him over the N-word joke Kid is added to his comedy routine. Kid's bodyguard, Hirsch, starts to grow impatient and grits his teeth. Touching down in Philadelphia, Kid is greeted by Carlton, his brother. They're both staying at the Four Seasons, which costs $5,000 a night. Of course, this just seems to reinforce how rich and famous Kid actually is. By contrast, Carlton isn't doing too hot. He's lost his restaurant, he's losing his business and is $600,000 in debt. However, Carlton remains positive, pointing out he still has his liquor license. Todd is concerned about Carlton re-entering Kid's life, believing he's going to drag the guy down. With these concerns playing heavy on his mind, Kid heads out to party with Carlton. However, things take a turn for the worst. Kid wakes up in his hotel room with one of the ladies from the club, Daphne, lying face down, dead. But how? Well, it seems like she's overdosed on pills. Kid's life is about to change forever, with everything spiraling out of control. Calling an ambulance is out the question, given it will bring the police in, so Carlton decides to cover for his brother. He's going to call Greek gangster Ari. Ari has a wickedly dark sense of humor, and he gives Carlton a set of strict instructions to follow. While he handles the body, Ari gives Kid his terms. He wants $500K a month for a year. Kid is put in really difficult position, but with little choice, he agrees to the terms. Off the back of this, Kid phones Terry and makes it out that he's going to transfer money to Carlton. Of course, that's a lot of money and he needs to declare it to the taxman. However, that would also bring unwanted attention back to him. Time for Plan B. Kid loses his temper and chokes out Ari with a cable, killing him outright. When Carlton shows up and sees what's happened, he's shocked. Greek Takeout, Episode 2 of True Story begins with Kid in a rough way. He's got a public appearance in front of all the kids following his movie premiere. He puts on a decent show, but it's clear Kid is beginning to crack under the pressure. Our celeb is understandably distracted, struggling to concentrate and incredibly paranoid. He continues to move from place to place, including a visit to the children's hospital. Back at the Four Seasons, Carlton struggles to handle Ari's body. Throughout the episode he communicates with Kid, ringing and texting to try and organize transportation for this heavy man. Slowly but surely it makes Kid grow ever more paranoid and skittish. That crescendos into devastating effect when Todd reveals he's set up a photo shoot back at the hotel room. Kid hurries back, lashing out at his biggest fan Jean on the way, to find the hotel room Ari free. The gangster's body though happens to be dumped in the bathtub. After the shoot, Kid takes Hirsch's car while using a massive trunk to wheel the body out. On the road, they have a quick pit stop, courtesy of a few police officers wanting to snap pictures. Eventually the pair make it to a secluded dumpster where they throw the body in. This nightmare is finally over, or is it? Victory Lap, Episode 3 of True Story, begins with Kid back on his usual routine. That includes an early morning gym session with Hirsch. The trouble though falls to Carlton, who still has Ari's phone and belongings. He ignores numerous phone calls from a guy called Nikos, who happens to be Ari's brother. Thankfully Ari's phone is a burner, so it's at least untraceable, but Kay and Carlton aren't out of the woods yet. It turns out Ari's brothers, Savas and Nikos, are actually the silent investors that injected money into Carlton's restaurant, and now they want their money. These are the guys Carlton owes $600K to. When Kid finds out, he records a video message, deciding to pay them back entirely. It's the final hurdle to cover this crime up completely. If they can get through this unscathed, Kid suggests Carlton hang out with him for the week. However, Todd shows up concerned and questions Kid about his behavior the previous day. Todd promises to have his back, although he also throws shade at Carlton for bringing Kid down to his level. While Kid pretends that everything is fine, Carlton knows that nothing is. He shows up at a strip club, ready to meet Savas and Nikos. Carlton plays a fine line, claiming that Ari is dipping out and needed some time away. Carlton plays them the video message, but the brothers want this transferred in cash, not via bank transfer. Things with Kid take a nasty turn when he's confronted by Jean backstage. Jean, of course, is his #1 fan and the guy he kicked off at outside the children's hospital. It turns out he filmed the whole event and knows that both Carlton and Kid dumped a body. Uh-oh. We should be together too. Episode 4 of True Story begins with Kid flying off the handle, lashing out and hurrying out the stadium. With the comedy gig a bust, Kid's phone blows up constantly as Todd plays damage control. Kid's ex, Monica, gives him some solid words of advice as Kid decides against going to the hotel. Instead, he's going to see Carlton. Kid's meltdown on stage sees him riled up, and he confronts his big brother about the night's events. Unfortunately, the pair end up fighting, with both swinging punches. When things do calm down between them, Kid bemoans his choices and realizes he should have called an ambulance when Daphne overdosed in the first place. The benefit of hindsight, eh? In the morning, Carlton and Kid decide they're going to handle Jean themselves. Kid takes off with Carlton, skipping past a whole group of fans and meeting Jean in a secluded spot. When he sees Carlton, Jean hurries over with a newspaper clipping. He recognizes the guy from high school football. "If it wasn't for you, there would be no Kid?" he exclaims excitedly. Getting down to brass tacks though, Jean has made a copy of his video, but Kid tries to sweet him into deleting it. He's not budging, but instead Kid decides to play the game differently. After a live stream and a big hug, he decides they should be friends. After handing over the money to Ari's brothers, Kid and Carlton are finally in the clear and only have to deal with Jean now. That is, until police find Ari's body in the dumpster. Hard Feelings, Episode 5 of True Story begins with Carlton advising against meeting Jean in private. If he blows up the video of Kid online, things could get rough. Carlton, though, has his own issues, eventually meeting Savas and Nikos. They believe a guy called Ray may be responsible for Ari's death, given he was working with the man. So naturally, the brothers tie him up and squeeze info from him. Unfortunately, this leads them to the Four Seasons Hotel, as Ari was bragging about scheming on some whale. Carlton tries to call Ray out as a liar, but to no avail. The brothers kill the man and decide to check the hotel out. With Billy starting to blow up following a great comedy gig, Todd rings Kid to let him know. Curious, Kid watches the video, but he's not exactly in a laughing mood. That much is especially true when he learns the brothers are on his scent. So just like we've seen across this entire season, Kid flaunts his wealth and lives the lavish lifestyle. This time though it falls to photo shoots and taking Gene out, bringing him into the limelight. Well, temporarily anyway. During Kid's comedy routine that night, he turns toward Will, the obnoxious fan from the airplane in episode 1. It turns out he's a big businessman, and Kid lays into him hard, calling out his behavior and how he loves using the N-word. Unfortunately, it also leads to Will getting fired and ruining his life. Gene watches this take place and immediately becomes uncomfortable, especially when Kid shakes off the man's concerns. Back at Gene's apartment, Gene points out that he could ruin Kid's life with a single button press. Kid, though, admits he made a mistake and tries to talk him around to granting him a second chance. Eventually he deletes the video, much to Kid's relief. Carlton, though, is concerned. Along with Gene essentially taking his spot by Gene's side, he's also concerned about the Greek brothers. They're checking the cameras at the hotel in the morning, and that could see Carlton in hot water. For now, Carlton heads over to see Gene, finding loads of pictures of Kid in his hotel room. It turns out he actually helped Gene through a dark time, stopping him from hurting himself, courtesy of his motivation. Carlton also hands over Ari's watch as a gift and leaves, immediately incriminating him for Ari's death. Episode 6 of True Story begins with Savas and Nikos over at Gene's place, beating him to a pulp. He sobs, claiming the watch was a gift. Remembering Kid's words about a second chance, Gene decides to outright admit to murdering Ari. He's obviously a bit unhinged, and this confession sees the Greek brothers kill the man outright. Meanwhile, Kid continues to work around Todd's schedule for pushing his superhero sequel. Kid, though, wants to take some time out with his son, Christian. They're both interrupted by investigators showing up, wanting to ask about Gene. He obviously doesn't know anything, given Carlton operated alone, but when he finds out Kid is on his way to the station, Carlton begins to panic. Now, given these text messages and calls can be traced back, it doesn't exactly look great. However, Kid has a solid alibi and the police don't really class him as a suspect. After giving his statement, Kid almost incriminates himself, asking about the security detail at the motel. Afterward, though, he heads off to meet Carlton at the restaurant. In private, Carlton admits to getting Gene killed. After clearing the air, Kid suggests they eventually work to get the restaurant patched back up again after Kid's tour. As the episode closes out, Kid checks Carlton's phone and notices messages to Simone, who actually happens to be Daphne in disguise. They stage the whole thing and incriminated Kid. But why? True Story Episode 7 Recap. After discovering Carlton's secret in the previous episode, Kid follows Simone Daphne. Although she tries to deny knowing him at first, Simone reveals that she was told to get him drunk and pretend to be dead. Kid believes, or at least wants to believe, that it was Ari's idea. But Simone reveals it was Carlton's idea and he brought Ari in. Speaking of, later that day, Carlton has 4 missed calls from Simone. Will she tell him what Kid now knows? After watching footage of Gene with Kid on TMZ, they notice that Carlton is in the background. This alerts them to the fact that Carlton lied to them and therefore is likely to be involved in Ari's death. Carlton has 4 missed calls from Simone, whilst brother watches the footage of Gene with the Kid and Carlton on TMZ, which alerts them to the fact that Carlton is a liar. Unaware of the looming danger, Kid reaches breaking point and trashes his hotel room. He, however, remains surprisingly calm when, for the first time since he found out the truth, he comes face to face with Carlton. Savas breaks into Simone's apartment. Where's Carlton? When she provides no answer, he slaps her across the face. Meanwhile, still shockingly calm, Kid asks Carlton which one he prefers, Simone or Daphne. Kid now blames Carlton for turning him into a murderer and tells him that you're dead to me. Savas continues to beat up Simone, but when Nikos rings him and tells him that he knows where Carlton is, he shoots her to death. Carlton sees that Savas and Nikos have found them, and he has himself and Kid flee from them. In the commotion, Herschel gets shot by them. It's an exciting sequence of events that concludes with both pairs of brothers cornering the other. As Carlton tries to bid for Kid's safety, Kid shoots both Savas and Nikos dead. When the cops get here, let me do the talking. But that won't happen as Kid shoots him. As he cradles Carlton's body, Kid tells him, "You always told me that I needed protection from everybody else. But I don't. I need protection from you." The ending of the finale, 3 days later. Kid is with a makeup artist, Natalie D. Woodard, who expresses her sympathy over Carlton's death. Herschel appears, having checked himself out of the hospital. He appears to be fine. But he does reveal to Kid and Todd that he overheard everything Kid said to Carlton at the football match. And as a result, Kid reveals the truth of what happened. Sort of. He reveals that Carlton set him up by faking Simone's death, that he killed Ari after he tried to get money out of him, and that Carlton set up Jean. Then, Kid claims that after Savas and Nikos learned the truth, they came after him and he shot them to death after they killed Carlton. Regardless of Kid's story, Herschel is understandably angry and accuses Kid of only protecting himself. He then makes the announcement that he will only protect Kid's story if he receives $6 million. Kid agrees, preferring his money to go to Herschel than Carlton or Ari. After Herschel leaves, Kid tells Todd to tell the studio that to make the sequel he wants his fee increased by $6 million. True Story concludes with the scene that started the limited series, as Kid prepares for an interview with CNN tonight. Most of the surviving key characters watch as Kid tells the interviewer that he has no knowledge of Carlton's actions. Kid finishes the show by saying he will focus on his family and allow himself to grow into the best man he can be. I feel that's the only way to give my story a happy ending. What do you think of Netflix series True Story? Share your thoughts in the comment box.